Most B2B sites look identical. Take a demo, talk to sales. References get pulled in only when a deal is wobbling, usually in a panic. Yet the people most likely to move a buyer aren't in your sales org at all. They're your existing customers. Companies that figure out how to put customers in front of prospects earlier and at scale are winning deals their competitors are still trying to follow up on. Today, we get into how to operationalize social proof, why most companies don't actually know their own user base, and what it takes to make customer involvement a system instead of a scramble. Welcome to Some Goodness, where we engage seasoned business leaders and experts to share practical guidance and tips to help new and future leaders maximize their impact. My guest today is Braydan Young, co-founder of Slash Experts and previously a co-founder of Sendoso, the gifting company that grew to roughly 1,000 people during his decade there. Braydan's now on his third startup, building a platform that connects prospects directly with the customers already using the product. We're going to talk about why that matters and why most B2B companies are leaving their best sellers on the bench. Well, Braydan, welcome.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for the invite. Excited for the conversation we're going to have today to solve all the world's problems.
There you go. Let's do it together. I'm excited to talk about our customer being the best salesperson we're not using. You've talked a lot about this. You've experienced a lot, so I'm looking forward to some insights
Yeah,
from you.
absolutely.
One of the things I thought we could start with is just one of the observations that I think that you've had is that just so many companies say they have thousands of customers, but they only really talk to a handful. Tell me what's going on there.
It's funny when you go to a lot of whether it be competitors or software companies websites, everyone has like the same, let's say 40, 50 logos on there. Like, oh, we all work with Meta. We all work with Google. It's like, wow, how's everybody working with the exact same companies? And we noticed a lot of that at my previous startup where everyone had these amazing social proof logos, but you weren't really sure who was using like that tool, that software there, nor you were like, "Hey, can they be a reference for me?" And it was never like, "No." Like that was never shared. You always had like something different. And then internally at the companies, a lot of the time when someone would ask for a reference, there was kind of a panic. It was like, okay, I gotta send like my reference to the exact same person that I sent all my references to because no one really knew who would do references. And then the process of getting one took time and is a very messy situation of what we've noticed internally, at least for sure.
Is it that the teams or the reps kind of have their favorite go-tos and they know that they can rely on them telling a strong story, or is it more about lack of a system and a process to go more broadly beyond your faves?
I think it's both. I mean, I think like sales is because typically most references are asked for at the end, right? And sometimes for an RFP, you get like the hey, like, can you throw a couple references in there for me if I just have to call them? Like most don't put references there, especially in tech, because you're like, I don't want to bother my customers. So typically it's a scramble at the end. It's like, hey, I need to talk to somebody because I need a reference. Can you give me one? And so as a sales rep, you're like, well, who's the fastest person that I could give to this person? And who will I know do a good job? So you typically go to that same go-to person every time. And then your other option is you go to Slack and you ping your marketing team or customer success team and you're like, "Hey, can you give me a reference?" And then it gets even crazier if you're trying to sell, let's say, a finance company and that company is like, "Hey, I need to have a reference in finance." So all of a sudden it gets very particular and then it takes time to find somebody to pre-vet them and then send them over. So when it's end of quarter, sometimes it's like who's the fastest that I get this person on the phone with, so they can check that box.
Well, and you make an observation there that it tends to happen late in the sales cycle. It tends to
Yeah,
be a scramble. Oh, I need to get this done. I mean, we teach reps to understand the procurement process right early on. And, what's it going to take to get this deal done? And you should expose through that process that you need, some references and be able to plan ahead. But I just see so many companies do get into that struggle.
yeah. I mean, like, so my first job as a sales rep was first job in tech was transactional, and so like I was taught to avoid the reference. It was like hey, like at all costs, because it wasn't enterprise sales where I think it's maybe a little more apparent, but like mid market SMB, it was like avoid it. Like they're only paying us X. Like we can't take our customers' time. Send over a case study, and like maybe that's good enough. And so like
Right.
that was always the goal. And so when someone would ask us for it, we'd push back, which isn't the right, especially today when like social proof and things like that help, but sometimes is having a good old conversation with somebody who's using a tool helps
Sure.
the most. I think, before I buy anything, I'm typically having a conversation with whether it be personal or for business. So you can ask someone who's already using that thing or driving that car or whatever have you, being like, "Would you buy it again? Do you like it?"
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's some sensitivity into overusing, our favorite customers and not appreciating that that takes time, right? And this is something that they're not paid to do, et cetera. But I think the other angle that I'm seeing in some of the teams that I work with and the reps I talk to is it's an uncontrolled variable, right?
Yep.
You don't know, you're not gonna be part of that conversation, and so there's some kind of uncertainty and risk with how that's gonna go. How frank are they gonna be? There's always hiccups and issues in delivery or things like that. Is like, are they gonna focus on that, or are they gonna say the good stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can apply it to, like, enterprise sales, it's like the same old sales method we've been doing for 50 plus years. I mean, when like, right now, where I am in the Bay Area, like, what's really popular right now are, like, these dinners that everyone's throwing, and so you have a dinner or, like, golf's always been popular where you go and you golf with, a deal you might be looking to buy or close, and you always bring a customer with you who's at the table or who's golfing, who can say really
Yeah,
nice things about you. So,
yeah.
like and, like, that's always the way that it's been, and we do that very well in person. And so one of the things we saw is like, why can't we apply that and just make it more make it easier for folks to be able to back channel you? And
Sure.
as a salesperson, like, using the reference really high up in the sales funnel, if they're a perfect ICP fit, I mean, like, your competition who's also in the deal is not gonna do that, and, like, that's gonna really make you stand out. If you're like, "Hey, you should talk to somebody who bought us a year ago, who loves us," and, like, those kinds of things, like, make you just more consultative than I would say, the folks you're selling against.
I like that, and it leads to a couple of words you said early on here: social proof.
Yeah.
Right. And so tell me a little bit about your perspective on, is there a difference between a reference and social proof? Social proof sounds a little bit more holistic and strategic to me, but what do you mean when you
It's a
say
good
social
buzzword,
proof?
right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So, like, social proof, it's simple things like, you have, like, those some of them, it makes you feel warm and fuzzy that you're okay with buying this tool. And so, like, when any company launches, there's always, like, the logos they add on their page, like, "Here's all the great logos who work with us." And then you have, like, case studies, people that, like, bought their tool or software or service and what they did with it and what the outcome was. So these case studies are great, they're pretty, they're flashy. You can do videos there too. Marketing feels really, really good when they create those. I don't know how much viewership they get or reading they get. I mean, like, it's nice to send over an enterprise case study. You're like, "Oh, see, this is what an enterprise company did with our tool. Isn't that great?" I think it helps some. I think it's a nice thing to be able to have in your back pocket. And then you have things like testimonials, things like that. So those are all social proofs, things that make you feel warm and fuzzy about buying a tool that you're not the only one. I mean, the old school phrase of, "Hey, no one got fired for buying IBM."
Yeah.
That's basically all social proof is like, "Hey, I'm buying a tool to solve a certain problem that I have, and my company is paying for it, and I'm gonna get a promotion here. I'm gonna be thanked here for bringing this tool in that's going to that's going to change the way we do business here." I mean, everyone wants that. And so, like,
Right.
if you have a case study where you can talk about getting someone a promotion because they bought your tool, like that's the best social proof. And so things like all that's all it is like just making someone not feel alone for taking a risk on buying your service, tool, platform, etc.
I like that. I think that's a real opportunity for teams to look into kind of broadening, this idea of just a reference and a proof point, but just the broader context of social proof can come in many forms. And, to your point, assets, conversations, right? Data, et cetera. We
Yeah.
were just talking about how companies kind of get trapped in the last minute scramble or sales reps do. How can we kind of take this idea of social proof as more of a system and a process in your overall sales motion and bring that forward or earlier in the sales cycle versus waiting until the last minute? It's like, oh, to get this deal done, I need a reference call.
Yeah. There's a stat, I forget what the number is now, but it's like, let's say 80%. 80% of the deal cycle is done by the time they're actually hopping on the phone with sales. Like, they've done back channels, they've read reviews about you, they know the problem you solve, some friend told them about you. So by the time you hop on the phone with them, uh, they're kind like so a demo is of course a necessary step of, "Hey, look at our tool. Isn't it great?" But a really good play, and I've only had this done a handful of times, is if a rep's like, "Hey, tell me about your business and, like, what you're trying to solve." And then you walk through that as the prospect. And then that sales rep's like, "You know what? You should talk to Richard. He bought us a while ago, and he's had success with it. Like, same kinda title as you, same kinda company. Have a call with that person." And so, like and, like, whether you're using my tool or not, you can do that on your own. I mean, you can loop in a customer that's already having success with your product, like, really early on, which changes the entire sales cycle. Because all of a sudden, you've gone from trying to sell a product to being consultative, and you're helping that person expand their network. You're introducing a case study that's real, and, like, that's changing the entire game, and that'll move your deal faster. Like, sending the typical deal funnel flow that we're used to is you take a demo, you jump on, you have, like, a 30-minute phone call, and, like, then you get a follow-up, and then a couple other follow-ups, and then, like, at some point, you're trying to sell this thing internally if you really want it. And then once you get the budget, then it's like, "Great, hey, here, go talk to procurement because I want you, and, like, let's agree on a price," which is fine. But imagine if you could, like, go into your boss's office and be like, "Hey, I did this demo, this tool, and also I talked to a use case, a customer's using them, and they're similar to us, and, like, here's the success they had." Like, this changes how you sell internally because all you're trying to do is empower your champion to get the deal done.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about how you guys at Slash Experts are solving this in a unique way, because I've seen companies struggle with, hey, we're formalizing a reference program, and,
Yep.
we need to get more, intentional about our references, or more careful about, not overusing certain customers as references. But I don't see anybody really nailing it. So what are you guys doing to kind of bring some uniqueness to solving this challenge?
Yeah, we built expert pages. So basically, what we do is if you're a prospect and you are looking at a tool, the sales rep can use one of our pages and be like, "Hey, like here's 4 or 5 people that have raised their hand that are using our tool that are willing to have a phone conversation with you as you look at our product." So they can go and like the big thing is like you can see exactly when they're available, kind of like a Calendly that we built. So you'll be like, "Hey, I know Richard's open right now. I'd book a time." And like the prospect can do that on their own. And like our AI can also recommend which person they should talk to based on who they are, based on their LinkedIn data. And so that can happen anywhere in the funnel, top of the funnel, mid funnel. And then also we're also using all the other social proof, case studies, reviews, things like that to nudge that prospect along as they go through the buying cycle. So if they're a month in, let's say a typical buying cycle, they've talked to sales a few times, they might get an email from our AI saying, "Hey, like here's a case study that we thought was really relevant to your space." And we can track which case studies are helping close deals, which ones aren't. We can do the same thing with reviews. And so we can recommend things, nudges along the way to keep that person involved and to continually share social proof through the buying journey, not just one time at the beginning or one time at the end. And references become very easy to use because there's a booking link that anyone can click anytime.
Oh, very nice. And it sounds like, you've got it down to where if they are you looking for a particular industry or use case or
Oh,
business
yeah.
workflow in that industry, then boom,
Yep.
it can surface, here's three people willing to talk.
Yeah, and then the best part is all the data that's talked about on that phone call is all given back to you as the customer. So you have all of a sudden transcripts of how your customers are actually talking about you.
Okay,
And
very nice.
that might be totally different than so you're a fly on the wall in those conversations.
Well, and that's one of the pieces that's typically missing, right?
Yeah.
Is, you do the matchmaking, you line up this reference call, and then you call your sponsor and say, "How did it go?" And they just kind of summarize in a few sentences. You don't get the full recording from the call.
Right. There was that idea came from a dinner I was at a previous startup where we had all these customers and prospects at a dinner. And the way that our customer was talking to a prospect as to how they used our system was totally different. The way we talk about it. We were like, oh, we're like, that's exactly what we should be using rather than like all these weird buzzwords that we were trying to use at the time. It just made sense. We're like, that's the conversation that is gold versus like talking to somebody who's in sales and is incentivized to sell you a deal. Like it's the consultative approach and the right lingo was we're like, okay, we got to make it easier for these folks to connect.
That's really good. In terms of kind of recruiting customers and, into this process to be willing to be put on those pages and called at a moment's notice or scheduled through the system. Do you guys help facilitate that? How does that process work?
We do. It's all automated. So basically, we'll look at your CRM, we'll look at your online reviews, and we'll say, hey, here's 50 people that we think would be great experts for you. And you say, go recruit them into our system, or it could also like, and we're constantly recommending new experts every month. You can also give us a list of people that you think would be good, and we'll put them in the system. But it's a lot of it is automated. Of like, hey, like here's the 50 folks that we think are good based on your CRM, and then they go live. They get an invite to join the expert program for ABC company, and they become basically additional sales folks for you. It's the best way to think about it.
Do you include any kind of benefits, motivations,
Yeah,
other
there's
than
yeah.
you're going to be a good person for doing this?
Yeah, please. Thank you so much for the time. There's two on both sides. So the customer is thanked, like there's a financial benefit there. Like it's that the our customer decides what that is. Typically average like $200 in e-gifts. Physical sends are a big thing, like wine, things like that are sent a lot. We can automate that for you. Charity sends are really big if you're in finance. It's like, hey, like you do a call and like we know that the SPCA of San Francisco is important to you, so we'll give you $200 that you can donate to the SPCA. So like that's a big one. But then that worked, but it wasn't like there's enough of those where like folks are like, okay, like thanks so much for the call, but like I already do these reference calls and I don't want to do as many of them as I do. So like we
Right.
gave control to the actual customer as to how often they'll take these calls.
Okay.
So it might be once a month or it might be once
Right.
a quarter. And a lot of the time, a lot of our customers are looping that into their contract of like, hey, like we'll give you a discount on the software if you're a reference for us, which has been like that's been like old school sales 101 forever, right? But like the
Sure.
thing there is like no one ever takes advantage of that. And so
Right.
you're like, hey, I'll keep the discount for you, be an expert for me. And like that's been a cool thing to see grow.
That's really good. Well, I think you've previously mentioned to me that early on you rolled this out to sales first, and the adoption was a bit rough, and you kind of had some lessons learned there. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I'm guilty of this myself. I mean, like sales gets a lot of tools thrown at them. And
Right.
so it becomes one of those things where you're sort of like I need to log in and go make sure that that tool is running properly. Like sales is a tough group to sell because they're like, I mean, they're at conferences, they're all over the space. And so like, so it's a tough group to get to, teach a new tool to. I mean, like even like Salesforce is like what, 30 years old and like updating Salesforce is like still probably
Still,
a problem
yeah,
for everybody
yeah.
today. And
And they
so
only
like
want another thing to have to go
yeah.
do or update, etc.
Like even with like automation. So what we do is like we built an AI, we call it Carly. How it works is it'll do all of the outbound, like, hey, connect with an expert, or here's a case study, here's a review. It does it all automatically. So you just approve it as a sales rep, like, hey, like go for it. Or you can put it on autopilot if you want to. So it'll basically just kind of act as think of it as like another SDR type person for you who's just trying to
Mhm.
move that deal along at once it gets into your pipeline.
So just kind of automating the grunt work that so many times we're asking sales to have to do
Well,
to
there's
get some meetings done.
there's so many SDR AI tools that are doing a great job of getting pipeline and like, hey,
Mhm.
these are the 10 perfect ICPs you should reach out to. But once the demo happens, a lot of those tools disappear. It's like, great, like now it's in your
Right.
pipeline. So all these tools you bought can
Now it's
prove
all on you.
ROI of like, yeah, it's like, hey, we brought you like 50 shots at goal. And like you gotta make sure you close one. If you don't, then it's your product's fault. And so the way I looked at it was like, okay, like what happens after that? So after you take a demo, the follow-up still today is really bad. And so like let's just make that more automated for people. And so that's where we live is kind of after that first touch.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
In terms of leaders, let's kind of get it to a practical level and just based on your experience and insights, I love to kind of give our audience some key takeaways that they could put into practice next week. So,
Yeah.
if you're a CRO or a CMO listening to this, what are some practical, hey, go do this quarter or look into this in terms of really this idea of your customers being your best salesperson you're not using, kind of starting to move in that direction.
So if you're a CRO, you should try to get a reference today, like for your own company. Like, just go through the process that you gave to sales and see what that's like. So go to the channel and say, "Hey, I need a reference of somebody, insert industry, in finance, and I need them to be in New York or, like, somewhere on the East Coast. And can I have a reference? I need it today," and see how long it takes.
Mm,
And I think that's a good experiment to see,
like
like,
the
how
super
long it'll.
snupper approach.
Yeah, it's almost like how long, and, like, maybe you get lucky and your team is kick ass and they're like, "Hey, here's, like, one right away." Awesome. Like, that's amazing. I think that's a very, very good spot to be in. But I think you and then go talk to your team and say, "Hey, like, how's the reference process?" And I imagine the majority of them will say, "Ah, well, like, we go to the Slack channel, but also I have these 4 people in my back pocket that I'm friends with who bought us that I usually go to." And so every good salesperson usually has 1 or 2 people that they just can send every reference to if they get asked that question. And so, like, kinda like, so that's a broken process because, like, 1, it's great that it's happening, and then the other question there is, like, go to your Salesforce and look and see how you're tracking it. See if, like,
Mm,
there's any activity in there of, like, "Hey, like, Brayden, who's a customer of ours, has done 15 reference calls for us this month or this quarter." Like, and, like,
mm,
I guarantee that won't be there either. And so there's no real tracking as to who's helping you close deals. And so, like, I think that something you could do as a CRO is test that out and then go talk to some of your sales folks, say, "Hey, like, let's take a reference and, like, rather than the end, like, let's recommend it to a deal that's kind of stalled out, that's, like, taking its, like, kind of not moving as quick as it should. And let's say, hey, like, you should connect to a customer who's a lot like you, who bought us and loves us, and put it in there and see if a call happens and see if that deal all of a sudden moves." I think, like, those are a couple of things you could test immediately to see
yeah.
how it goes. The last piece is a bit different. So your references, like, let's say your salesperson mentions, like, "Oh, I sent my references to Richard. He does a great job." Ask the sales rep the last time they thanked that person, or if they thanked them.
Mm, right.
Like, say, like, "Hey, do you like, what does Richard like? Does he like scotch? Did you send scotch as a thank you last time he did a phone call for us and it closed a $90,000 deal?" And, like, just see, like, what that's like. Because I guarantee you, maybe they sent something 2 years ago, the first call you did, but I imagine it's not every single phone call.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know, a couple things you could try.
Love it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really good practical advice, and really just kinda getting a picture of your current state, your current
Yeah.
situation of, how are we doing? How would I, if I could give us a letter grade,
Yeah.
are we at a B
Exactly.
or C, or are we failing, right?
It's not something that's less looked into a ton. I mean, because it's kinda like once the deal is asked for a reference, like, it's typically forecasted. And so you're like, "Okay, like, this deal's probably closing for me."
Right.
But it might be, you might add a week or 2 or 3 weeks to your sales cycle because you're waiting for them to connect. And, like, that customer is not gonna sign until they have a conversation with somebody. And it's
Right.
usually not a bad conversation because, I mean, references are usually like, you're like, "Oh, I know who, this person's talking to. I
Yeah.
know what
You
they're
know
gonna
it's gonna go
say."
well.
Yeah, I mean, like, and so maybe that's not always good. Like, maybe you
Mm.
should, like, have a reference where they talk about something that they messed up on, how they fixed the problem. So, then, like, maybe that's something you can start messing around with too.
That's good, that's good.
Yeah.
And then one other thing I just wanted to ask is, this idea of thinking beyond just a reference call and thinking about other forms of social proof might be
Yep.
new to many people out there or just underutilized. Is there any kind of elements or forms of social proof that you're like, hey, don't do this? We've tried it; it doesn't work well, even though it seems like a good idea. Or do this. Not many people think about it.
The ones that work the best on social proof who take references off the table are, like, video testimonials. Like,
Okay.
if you can send a video testimonial to somebody of, like, it's a face to face, like, talking about how much they love a certain tool, that's gold. I think written case studies are nice to have if you can have a logo front and center that someone recognizes, but in at least B2B SaaS type tools, AI tools, like video, like, quick 3-minute videos as to, like, why someone loves something and, like, why they bought that tool, would they buy it again, is gonna be really, really powerful.
And these days, there's so many video capture tools. I mean, we're
Yeah,
capturing video right now over a web call, so you don't
yeah,
have to have a production team and
no,
videographers or anything like that anymore, right? So it's surprising how companies don't lean into that more. And just to be
yeah,
clear, are you finding that these aren't long; these are 90-second, 2-minute
yeah.
videos, just short and
I
sweet?
think I think 2 minutes, 2, 3 minutes max.
Yeah,
I mean, like, you hit the highlights, of, like, who the person is, why they bought the tool, problem is solved. That's like 2 minutes. And a lot of the time, it's like, 'cause I mean, no one's gonna watch the whole thing. Like, if you have like a 16-minute production video and like maybe if you're selling like, I don't know, oil refineries, like something complicated. But I think
Right.
that
Yeah.
like ones that are, the short
Lots
ones
of
like 10 minutes or
B-roll on
less.
the oil rigs
Yeah,
and stuff. Yeah.
exactly. You're selling nuclear reactors maybe, but I think
Yeah.
everything else is short and sweet.
No, that's a great point. It just reminds me that, my team we need to do a better job of capturing some of those. We got some great customers that would just love to talk about us and
Yeah,
take the
people
time
like to
to
build
call them
social.
up and say, hey, can I, 15 minutes is all it take. I just want to ask you a few questions and we can turn that into a video.
I mean, there was like, if you look at Salesforce, like they did this forever ago. Like, when you go to like Dreamforce, they have like the big banner ads of like, like Richard, like a trailblazer customer of ours. And like, if you're walking, in Dreamforce and you see a big banner of yourself, you're like, oh man, I am badass. So like, and like all it is like, you're never going to leave Salesforce for those. 'Cause you're just like, yeah, like they love me, and you're building the social proof of your customer. I mean, like as we talked about a little bit ago, I mean, like that's the stuff like that promotions are made of. Like, and like if you're so like
Yeah.
stuff like that is just huge. Like helping build someone's own social, following is massive, and videos can do that.
Yeah, for sure. Love it. Well, thank you for your time today. We're
Yeah,
out of time, but
are we?
I
Awesome, that's great.
I know if time flies by, right? But just kind of geeking out a little bit on, just the broader context of references into social proof and thinking a little bit about how technology now, like you guys have built, can make it, that much easier to go execute is really cool. Um, you've listened to my podcast before, so I like to close with some extra goodness outside of what we're talking about today. So, either personally or professionally, is there anything you would care to mention that brought you a little goodness lately?
So there's a book that I've continually read. I feel like I read it every couple of years. It was written forever ago, but it was called "Let My People Surf" by the Patagonia founder, and
Okay.
I love it just because it's one of those where like he talks all about how like he never really wanted to build these companies, but he kind of fell into it. And like as he was building Patagonia, like he had all these employees who'd be like, "Oh, like the surf's really good today. I want to go out in San Diego and hit the." And he was like, "Then go." He was like, "I don't care where you are as long as like what the work you have to do is. We're all adults." And like with the world we live in now, people being all over the place and offices being sometimes empty, sometimes full, and hybrid work environments, I just love that concept today of like just live your life. And like there's no, I don't think there's a lot of separation between work and life
Right.
anymore. So when it's blended, it's kind of great because like I think that those are the companies everyone wants to work for, and I'll have a
Mhm.
lot of success.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly, if you blend it well, that
Yeah,
can lead to a lot of great work-life balance that everybody's trying to strike. But we do get book recommendations on this show, but not. I don't think anybody said that I read this frequently, or
I read it a lot.
that's awesome. Well, you've got me
Let my
intrigued
people
because
surf.
so if you've read it more than once or more than 2 or 3 times, I'm like, okay, I got to go buy that one. I'm gonna read it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time today and the insights you shared. Really a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Richard.
Some Goodness is a creation of Revenue Innovations. Visit us at revenueinnovations.com and subscribe to our newsletter.